Recently, a person asked me about how merit is accumulated. And this has been a very interesting question. It kind of took me down a rabbit hole. It's complicated. So I was able to get some clarity, a little bit, not much, from Alex Berzin. He sometimes talks about karma in a way that kind of goes in, so that was helpful. The concept of merit is tied to the teachings on karma. And so I started thinking in terms of dependent arising. But first, what is merit? That's helpful to kind of get that clear. So merit refers to constructive behavior and the consequences built up on our mental continuums. So planting seeds on the mind stream, pretty much. This constructive behavior is a positive potential that will ripen into feeling happy later on in various circumstances. That starts talking about the complexity already. Positive potential or merit is the potential for happiness to arise. It's often talked about building up merit or collecting merit. But it's not as though we are collecting points or that we have earned merit. It's so much more complicated than that. So I like the analogy of a network of positive potentials that we can strengthen. So this network is part of our Buddha nature. And we can strengthen it so that we can function better. So that makes a lot of sense to me. But because there are mutually interconnected potentials for so many different things, they do form this network, but it is extremely complicated, which is why we live in a very messy world. Our samsara is very messy, I think, because just of this, indeed. But everybody kind of has this basic network of positive potentials. It also is important to remember that happiness is something that requires our intention. We need to want to be happy in order to become happy. So, intention, motivation. So, creating the causes for a specific result. So, happiness follows naturally as a result of acting, speaking, and thinking constructively. The result of acting constructively, though, is very complicated because it's a dependent arising. So what does it depend on? Basically, it's a combination of a motivation, an action, and its immediate outcome. And of course, there are so many causes that are particular to each particular incident. So it's not that you act in a certain way and then immediately you're going to be happy and that you're always going to be happy and everything follows in a straight line. It doesn't work like that. It's not linear. Often that's what I'm expecting because I hold things so solid and so set up from their own side and me set up from my own side. And so when I get disappointed or when I get shocked by something, it's because of, my view and my ignorance and how I'm holding to things. But it doesn't work that way. It's so much more of a chaotic pattern. And we can see that in our daily lives. Sometimes we are so happy with a person and the next day we are not at all. it's just very, and same person, same. So we all have a mental continuum, and there is a continuity to our experience, not something solid, but a continuity of our experience from moment to moment, a stream of moments of experience that follow one another throughout this life and continues from one life to the next. So in each moment, the whole network of our potentials is present and can affect what can happen in the next moment. When I started thinking about that a lot, it's easy to get a little overwhelmed or scared. Because, not only do we have a network of positive potentials, we have a network of negative potentials. Because of our confusion about reality, our ignorance, we have many destructive ways of acting. And these actions result in negative potentials on our mind stream. And they all kind of interact and support one another in many different combinations that we will never understand until we become Buddhas. But we can certainly strengthen our network of positive potentials. That's much of what our Dharma practice is about. So we set a motivation out of a compassionate, non-harming intention, and then we do the action. The hard part is that it's so complex, and our potentials can ripen in a chaotic way. It doesn't always go the way we've planned. So, like example, I have the intention to make a nice breakfast for a friend. I want to make them happy. And so I cook the meal and get it all together and serve it. And then one of the things I served was some cherries that were harvested and, the pits taken out, whatever. And so they're taking bites of the cherry, and there was a cherry that had a pit in it. Chomped down on it, broke their tooth. So, what I expected to happen, what actually happened, two very different things, even though my intention, was a positive one, So then when that happens, then it's so important about how we react to that. That's the place right there. If I get really upset and, whatever, and, either lash out or get angry or frustrated or start beating myself up, now I'm putting negative potentials on my mind stream that are going to ripen in that way. So when you start thinking about it, every moment that we're doing something is feeding one or the other of these two positive or negative potentials. And I think because of that, that's why we have to have so much compassion for ourselves, because we can't beat ourselves into doing this properly, doing this right. At least I can't. So my mind is very afflicted many times, and I am feeding the negative potentials as well as the positive potentials, negative, positive. So, instead of getting bummed out about that, I, rest in the practices that we have. The most important one, purification, and then intentionally creating a positive potential as best I can. But I don't know what the outcome's going to be, ever. I don't, because there's too many things that influence every little thing. But when you think about it that way, then one is looking at reality in a more precise way, maybe, and I'm not getting kind of my ego involved in all this, that I'm going to make somebody else happy, or I'm going to do something that's going to, don't know. And so it's kind of humbling, I think. So, but the main idea is that we can build up this positive potential so that we get circumstances conducive for gaining insights into the Dharma. That's really the purpose. So as a result of positive potential, we have the inclination to get ourselves into circumstances that will bring happiness, that will bring positive results. So, like one of the results of a positive potential is that, I like to meditate and I like to think about Dharma topics. And as a result of doing these types of practices, because they're virtuous actions, then the impulse to meditate or to think about emptiness or another topic comes about more frequently. So now I'm setting up this network of kind of, pointing myself in a direction where it kind of feeds the next actions. And we can see how we do that here. We have a schedule and we pay attention to the schedule as best we can, and we participate in, and we set a good motivation, and we do the action, and we dedicate the merit, and then over some time, then we can start feeling the force of that, feeling how the positive actions kind of come that way. Through this practice that we do, through how we set our intention and what direction we end up going. And because of that, then we're going to attain deeper and deeper insights that will chip away at the ignorance that we have and the lack of awareness. And when we remove all of that, then we start removing the causes of our suffering. And then we really start resting in some contentment, some ease, some happiness. And then we can start, because of much more space in the mind, then we can start directing our intentions to help others to attain these same kinds of states that we have been practicing. So let's try and go in that direction.